How y'all doing? My name's Chris Stoy with Hutchison & Stoy PLLC in Fort Worth, Texas. In this video, I'm going to discuss liability insurance in the context of automobile, truck, and motorcycle insurance. When you look at your policy deck page or insurance policy, you'll probably notice different types of liability limits. One may be property damage. The property damage liability limit is the maximum amount an insurance company will pay for property damage to another person's vehicle that you caused. You'll also probably see the bodily injury per person liability limit. This limit establishes the maximum amount your insurance company will pay for each person who is injured in an accident caused by the at-fault party. The other thing you'll see is the bodily injury per accident liability limit. This limit caps the total amount an insurance company will pay for all bodily injury damages caused in a single accident. I can best explain this with an example. Say you rear-end a car with 3 people in it. Your bodily injury per person liability limit is $30,000 and your bodily injury per accident liability limit is $60,000. Now, assume person A's medical bills total $15,000, person B's are $30,000, and person C's are $10,000. Your insurance will most likely cover all those damages since each person's individual damages are below $30,000 and the total cost of the injuries is $55,000, which is of course below your $60,000 bodily injury accident liability limit. Now, let's take this same example and instead of person C having $10,000 in medical bills, let's raise that up to $20,000. If that's the case, then the damages in total are going to be in excess of $60,000 above your per accident liability limit. How? Well, you take person A at $15,000, person B at $30,000, and person C at $20,000 for a total of $65,000, which is $5,000 over your per accident liability limit. Now, notice that the policy is maxed out even though no one has more than the $30,000 per person liability limit. The same sort of thing happens if, say for example, you rear-end a car with only one person in it and that person's damages are, say, $40,000. The most your insurance company would pay is $30,000. Get it? All right, so now you're probably asking yourself, what happens if the at-fault party doesn't have enough liability coverage for the damages? If there's not enough liability coverage, the at-fault party is technically personally responsible for damages in excess of the liability policy limit. Now, that being said, there may be additional insurance out there to cover these damages, but we're of course just discussing this in the liability bubble right now. So, what are the liability minimum limits required in Texas? In Texas, the minimum liability limits of coverage is $30,000 per person, $60,000 aggregate. You can select more coverage. Typically, we see liability coverage in intervals of either $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, and $500,000, and then $1 million. If you've been injured in a wreck and your damages are greater than the liability limits, watch our video about underinsured motorist coverage and umbrella protection. Lastly, before we end this video, I want to answer a few random questions that we get. For example, what does liability insurance not cover? Well, liability coverage usually does not cover damage to your own car or any damage related to your own injuries for an accident you caused. Other types of insurance may cover those damages. For example, collision coverage typically covers property damage to your vehicle caused by your negligence. We have a video on that if you'd like to watch it. And now, liability coverage also, as I mentioned, does not extend to your injury cost if you caused the injury. If you want this type of coverage, you may want to consider either medical payments coverage or personal injury protection. Medical payments coverage and personal injury protection will cover costs associated with your injuries, and we of course have a video on that as well. Lastly, sometimes people ask us, if I'm riding in someone else's car and they're at fault for the wreck, does their liability insurance cover my injury-related damages? Generally, yes. Of course, you know, there are countless questions and issues out there. If you've got a question, feel free to give me a call at the office, 817-820-0100, or you can visit us online at warriorsforjustice.com. Thanks.